Good morning, everybody, and welcome in. This is WBRT, and that's a special edition here this morning on this Friday morning. And because we put out an invitation and we finally found a date to get our Miss Kentucky, Arianna Rodriguez, in with us this morning. Thank you very much for taking time out of your, I know, busy schedule, because finding a date was not easy.
Of course.
So, again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, for our listeners, viewers, give us your story a little bit.
Yeah, so my name is Arianna Rodriguez, and I am Miss Kentucky. I also serve as a spokesperson for the Department of Agriculture. But before I started my journey within pageants, I grew up in the foster care system, actually, which I don't think any other Miss Kentucky has ever done. So I spent 8 years in kinship care and then 2 years in foster care before becoming homeless at 16 years old. I lived out of my car for about 2 years, and during my senior year of high school, I realized that I wasn't eligible for any financial aid, that I had aged out of foster care 26 days too early to receive any scholarships. So that's when I decided that I wanted to start competing in pageants. And I had worked 3 jobs throughout high school. Here in Bardstown, I worked at a daycare, I worked at Fazoli's, and then I worked at Belmar Floral Shop in Louisville. And so I'd saved up about $1,000 to put towards my college savings. And when I found out about the Miss Kentucky Scholarship Organization, I signed up because I heard that there was a $20,000 scholarship awarded to the winner. And so I knew that that would help me with my journey to getting higher education. And I put all of my college savings into competing, and I lost. And that was the Miss My Old Kentucky Home pageant. And I had a director come up to me after, and she said, if you want to go to Miss Kentucky, we'll get you there. And so she put a post out on Facebook, and people from Bardstown and people from across the state and across the nation who didn't even know me heard my story, and they sent funds to help me go to Miss Kentucky. And it took a couple tries of me competing, but eventually I won, and I won $27,000 at the state level and $4,000 at Miss America for placing top 10. And so now I have the opportunity to serve as a spokesperson for the Department of Agriculture, but also to serve as a spokesperson for children who are currently in kinship and foster care.
Okay. You've established a nonprofit organization, yes, or entity.
Yep.
Tell us about that right now and where it's going and how people can become involved.
Yeah. So I started a nonprofit my senior year of high school when I was still living out of my car, called the Lucky Ones Foundation. And our 2 goals are to educate the public about the issues of the foster care system and to truly amplify the voices of youth in foster care. So many times when I was in foster care, my voice was diminished. And I hear people all the time say that we need to give foster youth a voice, but the truth is they already have a voice. They just need a place to be able to tell their stories. Social workers, legislators, everyone is always telling their story for them, but really just being able to give youth in foster care a platform to share their stories is what is always our main goal. So we have 2 primary initiatives. We have so many initiatives. I am constantly having to come up with new things to tell people because I have a board of about 14 members and then a volunteer base of about 40 people throughout the state. And they're just constantly coming up with new ways that we can help support youth in foster care. But the 2 main ways that we have helped youth in foster care throughout the past 3 years have been the Suitcase Project. So we collect suitcases for children in foster care. I was given a trash bag when I was first placed in state custody, and so it was a really dehumanizing experience, and we wanted to be able to give them a tangible item filled with all of the essentials that you need when you move into a new home. So hygiene items, blankets, coloring books, teddy bears for the younger kids, and gift cards for the older kids since they don't really need the stuffed animals as much. And our second initiative is the Lucky Ones podcast. So I'm actually in situations like this more often than you would think, but my podcast is a platform that I designed to really educate the public from foster youth perspective. So I interview youth who have been in foster care and youth who are currently in foster care, along with social workers and advocates, so that people within the community can get a wide range of perspectives about the foster care system, and they can really formulate their own opinions on what they think is going on in the system and what they think could be changed in the future.
Okay. We talked earlier before coming up here, I just did a little search yesterday of the celebrities, names that people will recognize that came through the foster care program. Marilyn Monroe, Seal, John Lennon, we talked about him a little bit, Coco Chanel, Steve Jobs, of course, and Cher are just some of the people that at some point in their life were in the foster care program. Where's the misconception? What do people think that's not correct?
Oh, how much time do we have? Because there's a lot. There is a lot. I would say the number one misconception that I hear is that youth in foster care are bad kids, especially those who are in foster care in their teenage years. After you've been in a certain amount of homes, you're automatically labeled at risk, even if you haven't left those homes because of something that was your wrongdoing. So maybe, they just had a certain number of families that couldn't financially support them anymore, or maybe they had families where it just wasn't the right fit, and so they had to move into different foster homes. But once you reach a certain amount of foster homes, regardless of the reason, you're labeled at risk, and so it's harder to place those kids. And it creates a lot of struggles and challenges because those kids have this this mindset that they're a criminal because they're being labeled as, a bad kid and like they've done bad things. And the truth is they're in their situation not because they did something wrong, but because maybe their parents didn't have the resources and supports to take care of them. Maybe their parents have made some mistakes in their lives. And so it should be no fault to the children, but so many times youth in foster care are told that it's their fault and they're treated poorly because of something that they can't control. I would say that's the most common misconception that I hear, but I hear so many because the truth is the general public isn't educated about the foster care system. Unless you've been a social worker or a foster youth yourself, typically you don't think about it because we're all so focused on our own problems, our own day-to-day lives, so we don't really think about other people's as much as we probably should.
You just said something, day-to-day life. When you were homeless for 2 years?
Yes.
How did you cope with that? How did you survive a little bit? But how did you cope with that on the emotional side? I don't know. There's a physical side too. But.
Yeah. So the last 2 years of high school, I attended Thomas Nelson. I don't think a lot of people really realized what was going on in my home life. I went back and forth between living with friends and living out of my car. And I really coped because I had a great support system, even though there weren't as many adults as I would have wanted in my life, trying to support me. I had so many friends who opened their homes to me when it got cold outside and I couldn't stay out of my car. When I needed rides to work, so many friends that stepped up to do that for me, even though they were children themselves. And obviously, my senior year of high school, I met my local director, Kimberly Lyle, who introduced me to the Miss Kentucky organization, and that truly has just changed my life in more ways than I could ever imagine. I mean, just to think that 3 years ago, I was here in Bardstown, living out of my car, working 3 jobs just to try to finish high school, and now I get to say, I am going to graduate debt-free from the University of Kentucky. I'm able to say that I made top 10 at Miss America and that I've been an intern in the state capitol, that I have a nonprofit, and I just truly would never... I never thought when I was 16 living out of my car that I would even have a house or a car. And so now being Miss Kentucky, having the sponsored house in Lexington and having a sponsored car from Paul Miller Mazda of Lexington, those are things that I never thought that I would have. And when I first started competing with it in pageants, I knew that it would change my life, but I didn't know just how much. And so to see everything that I worked so hard for come into fruition has just been an incredible experience. And to be able to, look back at those people who have helped me throughout the years, to be back in Bardstown where so many of my best friends from high school currently live, it's just incredible. I hope that I get to meet up with some of them after this.
Department of Agriculture in Kentucky, but as Miss Kentucky, what's your week look like? Not this week, or a general week.
It's very hard to give you like a week schedule because I'm truly doing something different every single day. Some days I'm doing interviews like this. Other days I'm doing farmer safety demonstrations. So Dale Dobson, if you know him from the Department of Agriculture, he has me doing some crazy stuff sometimes. A couple of weeks ago, we did like a tractor simulation as if like a rollover simulation. So they put me under the tractor and then had EMS workers get me out, put me in an ambulance, drive down the road, and then fly me in a helicopter to a hospital, completely like strapped in a neck brace and everything, like a true simulation. I mean, I've got to go to Kentucky Kingdom. They opened the whole park just for me and my little sister. So any ride that we wanted to go to, we got to see Noah Kahn in concert. I get to see all of the Miss Kentucky class of 2026 compete and win their local titles. And obviously I get to serve as a Department of Agriculture spokesperson, so it's a lot of going into schools and teaching kids about Kentucky Proud products and where their food comes from and, you know, how hard farmers work to get that food on their table. And anywhere that I go, I'm really able to educate the public about the foster care system. So that can look differently every day, but that's a general week is a mix of all of those crazy things.
Well, in studio with us, but off camera is Josie, your sister, and she pointed out when you guys pulled up here today that was kind of you parked in that same spot.
Yes.
The last time you were not here, but shopping or something.
Yeah. So I remember when I was in high school, I think we were shopping for somebody's birthday present. I took my friend Emily and Zoe, my little sister, and we went shopping just down the street.
Yeah.
But when we parked today to come here, she was like, yeah, we've been here before. That one time we went shopping, and she was like, we parked right here. So it was a full circle moment that we weren't expecting today.
Well, Zoe, we'll put your name on it, and I'll put an orange cone so nobody else can park there.
Zoe's spot, yeah.
So, UK, you're on a little bit of a pause because of all of this.
Yes.
What's your field of what are you studying for?
I'm a double major studying social work and psychology for my undergraduate degree, but eventually I'd like to get my master's in public policy and do foster care reform throughout the nation. Okay. Yeah.
Does Kentucky's laws on foster care, are there some areas that it needs changed? I don't know what the laws are, but
since I was in foster care, the system has gotten so much better. So that is one good thing that I feel like isn't talked about enough. You know, there have been a lot of people. One of my closest friends has actually worked within the Capitol doing foster care reform. Tyler Hunter, he's based out of WKU getting his master's right now, but that's the first person that I think of. He was in foster care himself, and we're seeing more and more of that, of advocates who have been through the system themselves. And so there are always going to be things that need to be changed within the system because it's not perfect. No system in our country is. There's always room to improve with anything that you're talking about. But to know that there are people who have been through the system who are currently working in it and trying to change it for the next generation of kids that will go through it just means the world to me, yeah.
Okay. How many miles do you think you're going to travel in your term as Miss Kentucky?
You know, I'm not sure. I've traveled about 20,000 miles, I would say, in the past 3 or 4 months as Miss Kentucky. So about 60,000 miles, 70,000 miles is my guess. We'll see at the end of the year.
The whole way?
Just sometimes.
Well, it is certainly amazing, the story.
Thank you.
And the thing is, we all know, for anybody that's seen you, the story's not over. Mm-hmm. I use the expression of journey. Yours has got a long way to go in it.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so, yes.
Back to the Harvest for the Lucky Ones all across Kentucky.
Yeah.
That program's going on. How do people? Where do they contact? Where's their websites, or how do they make donations? How do they become involved?
Yeah, so as a spokesperson for the Department of Agriculture, I travel to schools across the state. And so Bethany Mattingly, who works with the department, her and I came together and were like, how can we get these kids involved, not only in agriculture, but also in helping youth in the foster care system? Our goal is to always make these kids, the most respectful and the most giving and compassionate, because they truly are the next leaders of our country. They're going to be the next lawyers and advocates and doctors. And so we really try to pour into them, with me being kind of like a teacher for the Department of Ag and for my platform. And so we came up with this idea to have every school in the state collect supplies for youth in foster care. And we've gotten thousands of donations. The turnout has been incredible. I think we officially closed Harvest for the Lucky Ones, but every time I go to a school, they have supplies waiting for me, and there's always kids in the foster care system who need it. So I would say definitely book me to come to your school. It's free of charge. It's all paid for by the Department of Agriculture for the state of Kentucky. You can reach out to bookmissky@gmail.com if you want to book. Just reach out to Jessica, my booking manager. She's incredible, and she'll get your school set up. And if you would like to participate in Harvest for the Lucky Ones, even though the harvest season is coming to a close, I would really appreciate it. We're always looking for new supplies. Most of what we take is hygiene items and suitcases and backpacks. We truly try to give these kids the most sense of normalcy as they can get. So we always try to say new or like new items so that we're not giving them ripped up backpacks or anything like that. But if you do have any of those items that you don't use, or if you want to spend a little bit of your money to go out and collect hygiene supplies or, gift cards for the older kids in foster care, I know that they would appreciate it.
When you drive around, and of course I hadn't seen one in a few days or maybe a few weeks, but you'll see signs out in the yards, foster care, become a foster parent.
Yeah.
How important is that in your journey?
I mean, it's very important. When I was in foster care, I was separated from my siblings. A lot of foster parents can only take a certain amount of kids, and so the more foster parents that we have, the more likely that those siblings are able to stay together. So truly, if anyone is out there listening and they're thinking about opening up their homes to children, I would say just do it. It is difficult. I'm not going to lie. Being a foster parent, of course, is going to be difficult because these children have trauma and they've been raised in environments where they've experienced things that no kid should ever go through. But I wouldn't be where I'm at today if people hadn't stepped in and said, maybe this girl needs help. If these people listening can hear my story and think, I want to help a kid like that. Maybe they're just going through something difficult right now. And like I said, it's not easy. They're going to have challenges, like any kid would, those teenagers. But everyone needs a parent to be there for them during their times of need. If you think about young people, they're already going through so many challenges, even if they're not in foster care, switching from elementary school to middle school or middle school to high school, just growing up and trying to navigate the world as young people in this increasingly digital world where we're facing conflicts that no other generation has really gone through before. At least not in the same way. Every child needs that support, but for youth in foster care, when they're already experiencing all of those things, and then you add on top of that the abuse and the neglect and the lack of parental figures, of course they're going to be angry. Of course they're going to be sad. And so I think a lot of potential foster parents don't get into working within the system because, it is a lot. But I know that we need more people like me who are advocating for the issues that they care about, regardless of whether it's foster care or something else. If we pour into the children who are in the foster care system, they could become, those lawyers and doctors and advocates. But if we don't, the chances are they will become another one of the statistics. 50% of youth who have experience within the foster care system will become homeless or in prison within the first 2 years of exiting care. And like we talked about at the beginning of this interview, that's at no fault of their own. Of course, if you went through years and years of abuse and neglect and you were never taught how to live effectively in this world, you would experience challenges like that. And so I think that what these kids need most is someone who will love and support them unconditionally, even when they do have those hard days, as all of us do, just to see them as children and not as cases.
Arianna is the reigning Miss Kentucky. She's a graduate at Thomas Nelson High School.
Yes.
And Zoe, her sister, is chief navigator, I guess.
Yes.
But with her today. It is something else. How was when the other contestants at Miss Kentucky heard and learned your story? How did any of them come up to you? What say things, or kind of feedback, I guess?
Yeah. So I remember a lot of the contestants coming up to me and being like, "You're so inspiring. Your story really resonated with me." A lot of people think that in the pageant world that all of the girls competing are rich and they don't have problems, and that's not true. Every single one of us are human and we all have our problems. And so that was really interesting to see that people would come up to me who I competed with and said, I'm experiencing all of this. Maybe their family doesn't help them with pageants. I mean, it's expensive and it can be isolating sometimes if you don't have that support. And a lot of people who I wasn't expecting to came up to me and said that. But going back to the support of the girls that I competed with, before I won, so many of the girls who I was competing against donated their own clothes so that I could wear on stage and have things, to wear to compete. They helped fundraise my way to Miss Kentucky. I mean, the people who I was competing against helped me pay for my entry fees a couple years ago. And so to just think that, yes, I'm wearing the crown and sash, but there's a little piece of every girl that I competed with that I carry with me every single day. And so not only do I hope to, educate the public about my story, but theirs as well.
And that gives you, we call it a good, warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yes.
You probably call it something different, but to recognize that.
Well, yeah, because
it is a competition.
Yes, it is. And a lot of times people see movies like Toddlers and Tiaras and Miss Congeniality, and, that's the perception of pageant girls. But to just know that there are people out there who will do something like that, even though, they were competing against me, like when you really think about it, but they didn't care. If they were going to compete, they wanted everyone to have a fair shot, and that they just helped me get there, and I can't thank them enough.
Very good. By the way, I want to say a word right now. Coming up when we get done here today, we're going to have a little lunch in the station. I want to thank our friends at Zaxby's for saying anything you need, let us know. So I don't know what I'll be bringing back, but when you're in with Ken, maybe I'll come back. I just run off with all those Zaxby's chicken. I'll have a picnic. But then we'll say thanks to those people at Zaxby's. So from this afternoon, what's on your schedule? I'm not trying to be nosy or snoopy, but just you got an afternoon off. Do you have many days off? Or
I actually do have this afternoon off. I don't have a lot of days off. Miss Kentucky is a very busy job, which you only get to be in this position for a year, so you want to take advantage of it as much as possible to use your time wisely and to try to reach as many people as you possibly can this afternoon. With that being said, I do have it off, so I'll be cleaning up my house, getting some laundry done, and preparing for my events for the rest of the week.
Okay. Arianna Rodriguez, the Miss Kentucky, and who has one of the great stories in top 10 in the pageant, and a lot of people were rooting for you. I'm sure you could feel it. I hope you could anyway. It's a great privilege to have you here. First time we talked before this was you were at the Kentucky State Fair on opening day, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have to reign over a little bit of that too, don't you?
Yes. That was such a crazy week.
Yeah.
As you probably know, State Fair is insane. I had about 15 appearances each day, State Week. So by the time you saw me, I was probably a little tired, but I hope that the interview was good. I always enjoy talking to...
I told somebody I had goosebumps. Now, did you get to taste that $10 million ham? Or you
No,
present it, did you?
I got to present it. It wasn't as heavy as I thought it was going to be. So the day before, this is kind of a funny story. The day before, they had given me like a practice ham, and it was like 10 pounds heavier than the real one. And so I was going in there like, I'm gonna drop this, guys. Like when they gave me the practice one, I could barely hold it up. And so when they gave me the real one, I was like, oh, this is nothing. Yeah.
I would, at least one thing, I don't think you can drop and break a country ham.
I hope not.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to take Miss Arianna across this hallway where she will join Ken the Snowcat here on WOKH over there. Again, it's been such a pleasure, and we look forward to continue. When does your reign end? When does...
It'll end in this upcoming June.
Okay.
So I'll give away my title on June 13th, I believe.
Okay.
2026.
Well, that's it for this segment. I'll try to hit the button here, or two. My producer is, I don't have a producer, so but we certainly appreciate very much you spending with us today a little bit of time and breaking a little bit of Zaxby's bread here in just a little bit.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You bet.